Everybody, getting ready to start week 3. This weekend, you should be finishing up on module 3. Great discussions on some of the information in terms of research that's out there, great validity on some of those studies. And I see you guys analyze some of them and we're like, these aren't very valid. So that was the whole point in the exercises last week, is really understanding how to look at nutrition research and determine whether or not it's effective or it's something you should apply to yourself. And then the discussions going on with the microbiome, some really interesting stuff in there. So make sure you get in there and finish up all that information and all of the assignments here for module 3. And then moving on, so opening today, you've got the module on carbohydrates. And then also you've opened up, it's hard to believe, but this condensed class moves so quick. So we're finishing up this first block. So there's 3 block summary discussions and assessments that you'll be working on. And so in carbohydrates, there's a couple things. Let's go right to carbohydrates so that I make sure you guys we're all in the same spot. So you'll have the overview, take a look at all the objectives and let me know what you're interested in. You've got your guided lecture notes. And the place where these guided lecture notes are going to come in really effective are when you do that block exam. So sometimes students tell me, gosh, that block exam, I only have an hour to do it. I want you to approach it as if it was an in-class exam. You do have the resources and it is an open book. But the intent is that you would have studied for the exam when you go into it and that you're fully ready to take it as if it were an in-person exam. And I think sometimes students rely on the fact that they can look up the questions, but when you only have an hour to do 50 questions, you should know the information. So you should be ready to answer that. So a couple things, great information here. People think about carbs and, are carbs, are sugar addicting? Do we get addicted to sugar? And I think about Halloween coming up on Monday. Great time to think about what's your favorite candy. And so there's a good video on that. And then just a little bit more information about carbohydrates. I've got a video there on Play Pause It. This is going to be the first time you're going to do this dietary analysis of carbohydrate intake. So that 3-day food record that you captured that first week, if you're not happy with those 3 days that you have in there, you have time to redo that. And that's the information. You don't have to redo it. You can use the same one. But you're going to need the information from that to complete this analysis. And the discussion for this one is really kind of prompting you to answer some of the initial questions that are in this dietary analysis. So I'm just going to kind of pull this open for you. So in your discussion this week, it's a bit repetitive compared, in terms of what you're going to be doing for this analysis, which is good because that means the work is repetitive. So it makes it a little bit easier. So what you're doing here is I want you to be able to calculate what is your range of carbohydrates in grams that you should be shooting for in a day. And so that's going to be a daily total. It's going to be a total, turn off my Outlook. That's going to be a total in terms of, that's going to be a daily intake in terms of total carbohydrates. And then you're also going to be calculating what should you limit your added sugar to. And then you're also going to determine your fiber. For this assignment, for your discussion, what I want you to do is take a look at your calorie goal. So when you're looking at your GB Health, wonder if I have one sitting around here. But when you look at your GB Health report, oh, here it is up here. So your GB Health report up in the upper left-hand corner here, it's going to have what your calorie goal is. And so this is the number that you're using. So not the food that you ate, but what your goal is. And so that number down here, when you determine how many grams should come from carbohydrate, remember the acceptable macronutrient distribution range is for 45 to 65% of your calories to come from carbohydrate. So you can simply plug your goal in here. My example uses 2,000. And so if you want to find out how much 45% of your calories are, 45% would be a decimal of 0.45. So that tells me 45% of 2,000 is 900 calories. And then I need to convert, and then also I want to do 65%. So 2,000 times 0.65 is going to give me 1,300. So my calorie goals for total carbs are 900 to 1,300 calories. And then I have to convert those to grams. And so there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. So I'm going to divide 900 by 4 and get 225 grams, and then 1300 by 4 and I get 325 grams. So my total carbs, if my goal is 2000 calories, is about 225 to 325 grams. For added sugar, you want to keep it at less than 10% of your total calories. So you're going to do that same calculation again, but times 0.10. So whatever your calorie goal is, and again, you're looking at this number here, although I'm using 2000 as my example here, times 0.1, so 200 calories or less from added sugar, and then convert that to grams. So take that number, divide by 4, and it's going to tell me 50 grams. And so for your initial post, I want you to go ahead and list this calculation. And then I want you to look at your analysis, the assignment itself, and look at the questions in there. You can go into it's set up as a quiz. It's just how you can, rather than turning in a paper, I have it set up as a quiz. But you can go in there as many times as you want and take a look at it and then go back in and fill in the information. And so I want you to take a look at it. And do you have any questions about it? So that you can pose that out to your classmates and hopefully get some answers from your classmates. And then what is one thing you hope to learn by looking at this dietary analysis of fiber? And so that's your discussion. And the reason I'm showing you that is because when you go into this dietary analysis of carbohydrate intake, I'm going to preview it. And I think it's going to open. Open. Okay. So you'll go through here and look at the questions. I need a copy of your GB Health Watch. So I need a copy of that 3-day PDF. So it needs to be the 3-day. I don't want you to submit 3 one-days. It needs to be, go to the 7-day PDF analysis, go to the last date that you put in information, pull the 7-day. There should be 3 days in there. If there's more, that's fine, because you need the average intake. And so you're not going to get that if you have 3 one-days. So make sure you upload that. If you don't have that, I can't grade any of this assignment. So you've got to have that. And then you're going to come down here. And again, you can click across. So it's going to say calculations, and it's going to show you that same thing we just did. So here's for total carbohydrate, the example of 2000 calories. How do you calculate sugar? Same thing I just showed you. For fiber, you're going to go to this table here. We'll go to it for kick's sake. And then in this table, come down the sideline and find out what's your age. So if you're a female, 31 to 50, your total fiber should be about 25 grams. Don't pay attention. This carbohydrates per day RDA, I don't even know where they came up with that number, but that's just not correct. So you're just getting fiber off here. You're not getting your carbohydrate. And so your example answer is just going to be specifically this. My example is based on a female of 51 to 70, and it's 21 grams of fiber. Just put that in the answer here. And then right here, basically what you're doing with this one, let me go to student view because I want to show you something. So I'm going to take the quiz. Doop, doop, doop. So for this question here, what you're going to do on this question here, you're going to create this table, total carbs, added sugar, fiber, and then what is your RDA? So these are the numbers that you calculated up here in 2. So all those numbers that you had calculated, here's my example answer, right? So these numbers here are essentially going to go into this table right here. And then your intake is coming specifically from your GB Health Watch. So how much total carbohydrate in grams did you eat? How much total sugar in grams and how much fiber? So you're getting this from your report that you submitted in question 1. And then are you above or below? And so that you're kind of putting that there. And what I wanted to show you to create the table, maybe some of you know this, but here's where your answer is going to be. Click on table. And then I think it was 4 across and like a couple down. And then you can go ahead and type into the table here. So that way you have your table. I think you might be able to copy and paste it. And if you get down to this last cell and you meant to make one more row, you hit tab and it'll add, so you can keep tabbing. Okay. And then down here in 4, what are your leading sources of total carbohydrate, added sugar, or fiber? So to do this, you go to your GB Health Watch live program. Oh, I should open that up. GB Health. I'm going to pause it for a second. Okay, so I have my live report open here. So go to the date that you entered food. So you can go back here and you can click and find which day did I enter food. So I've picked September 14th. You can move around to find your dates. If you don't remember, you can look at your report, your GB Health report at the very bottom of that PDF. It'll show you that each of the days that you put in food, it'll have the date and it'll have the food you entered. So I'm going to go here, find that day, and then I'm going to click on report. And then I'm going to scroll down on each of my days that I put in information. And what I'm looking for, what are my top sources of carbohydrate and then of added sugar. So right here, here's my carbohydrates. I click on this happy face and it will tell me these are my top sources. So these are my top sources. This is how many grams are in each of them. And then I'm going to go to added sugar. These are my top sources, and this is how many grams are in them. I don't need percent, I just need grams. And then you're gonna go back and click on the next date that you entered data. So you have to go back to food log, go to the date. I don't know if I have another day in here. And so I'm gonna go back to this date. So now I'm on the 13th instead of the 14th. I'm gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna scroll down and I'm gonna find this information. What did I eat? What are my 3 top sources? And I'm going to capture that data. So what you're going to do with that information, it shows you here. So my top sources of carbohydrate, here's date March 2nd, and this is what I have, and this is how many grams are in each. And then top sources of added sugar, here's each of my 3 days. These are my top sources. Some of the days you may only have one source, and that's fine. And then fiber, same thing. When you were on this report, you can find fiber. I'm not seeing it right here, so I don't want to take up your time, but you'll find fiber on here as well. It should be in here. Oh, here it is, fiber-rich foods. And so click on this, and these are my top sources of fiber. So same thing. And then you're going to capture that for each of your 3 days. These are my sources, this is how many grams. So that's kind of what you're doing for that answer. And on question 5, what changes can you make? So this is your last question here. What changes can you make in your diet to make it more closely meet the carbohydrate recommendations? So look at some of your answers previously. If you're not quite meeting your recommendations, what else do you need to add? Put in specific foods, and just make a comment on your overall carbohydrate, fiber, and added sugar intake. And so that's kind of what you're doing with this one. This takes some time, so don't wait till Thursday next week to do it. That's all I can say. If you can get the discussion done and you've read through it and then start working on it, it's pretty quick once you understand it. But just make sure you do it. Make sure you don't wait till the last minute to do this one. So let me leave student view. And what else do we have? So those are the biggies. And I'll go back to the module. So that's your dietary analysis of carbohydrate intake. And this is the first of several dietary analysis that you're going to be doing. So next week we're doing fat and then also protein, and then we move on to vitamins and minerals. So again, that's kind of your biggie, the discussion and that analysis, your knowledge checks, and then your quiz here. You also have then due on November 6th, which is a week from Sunday, I believe. It's your first block summary. And so this summary is going to be over the first 4 chapters. So the information in those first 4 chapters, you'll be quizzed on all of that. I have a mid-course student review, of course. I mean, I feel like it's only 3 weeks, so it's hard to really analyze it. But I'm always looking for feedback from you in terms of what you're thinking about the course, what's working, what's not working. It gives me a chance, especially in a condensed course like this. It's really important that I gather data from you, the students, to find out what's working and what's not working and what you would like to see differently. So that's important to me. And you get points for it. So it helps me adjust my courses to make sure that I'm meeting the needs of the students. So again, your first block test, this one you get one try at it. It's 50 points and you have, I believe, an hour to do it. Let's pull that up just to make sure. Yeah, 60 minutes. It's pulled from similar test banks from the previous tests. That's why I always recommend take each test twice. And make sure you've looked at the information, make sure that you go through those guided notes, go back over all the knowledge checks, so that you're familiar with that information, and just be prepared for it as if it were an in-person test. So as you know from the quizzes, they're pretty straightforward, but some of the questions are a little tricky, especially if they have multiple answers. Those ones get a little tricky. So make sure that you prepare yourself for it. Don't take it last minute and just buzz through it, because I've just seen that has not worked well for a lot of students. Some of you are just whizzes at taking quizzes, and you may do fine, but most of us, I think, for me, I have to really study going into tests. So that's what you have up and coming for this next week. Great information on carbs, and we're going to kind of wrap up these first four units that you've covered, the first 4 chapters. The book calls them units. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm happy. I've got my office hours, but those don't always work for students. So I am happy to meet with you on Zoom. If you just can't figure out that diet analysis, just, check in with me. Let's get on a Zoom meeting and let's talk about it. I can help you find the information you need to find. I can help you with your calculations. I know some of you are not fond of math, and I'll walk you through it and we'll figure out what the numbers are. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. All right, everybody, have a great weekend, and I'll be checking in with you online.